So Bob, welcome back.
Thanks.
Now let's pick up on that last point. You're talking about the economy. From your standpoint, are things getting better?
Well, things are getting better. I mean, I think clearly we reached bottom in terms of the economy, but I think we still have a series of challenges that relate to the financial conditions of local governments, state governments, and the federal government. And while the federal governments and state governments are really struggling to come to consensus, one of the things about local government is you have to get things done. And so governing bodies and city managers and county managers and town managers, I think, are working through the challenges of setting priorities, trying to find out where they're going to get the revenue to do the kinds of things that are important in their community. So I think there's a renewed optimism that we're going to find the solutions, but I think we're in the midst of that.
But so maybe with the housing coming back so strongly, what are revenues like at a local level?
Well, I think revenues, it's very hard to generalize because it's very much a regional, state kind of activity. So certainly the housing market is better, particularly in the areas that were sort of the in deep depression. But still, we're not back to the levels yet that were pre-recession. Certainly things like sales tax and income tax are starting to make a rebound. But I'm not sure it's ever going to go back to the way it was. So I think there's a readjustment period that's going to go on.
So that's a really good point. So, I mean, a lot of people think this recovery that we've been in for, years now is a pretty tepid one.
Well, I think it doesn't have much momentum, and so it's subject to lots of hiccups. But I mean, we're clearly in the right trajectory. So one manager said to me, it's wonderful when flat is the new growth because you've been in the other trajectory for so long. So I think you're starting to see communities sort of sense that there's a renewed momentum of job creation, a beginning of a return of the housing market, beginning to confidence in consumer spending and those kinds of things. But we're not out of the woods yet, and so there's lots of things that could get in the way.
Last question. I know we're talking about local government and about getting things done. But when you look at what's going on in Washington at the moment, nobody could say things are getting done. Does that make it harder for a local government?
It makes it harder. But I do think the one thing about local government, it's very practical. And you sort of, to use the phrase, you play with the cards you're dealt. And there's nothing you can do about what's going on in Congress, and there's nothing you can do often about what's going on in the state legislature. So you try to make the best of what it is. And one of the things about local elected officials and managers and their staffs is they're very practical. They're going to find a set of solutions, even as difficult as that may be. And if Washington turns around, that'll just make it easier.
Well, Bob, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and we hope you have a great conference, Bob. Thank you.